Welcome to Detangle, where we untangle the complexities of life, one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Dr. Kinjal Goel, a psychologist and a writer. Our guest today is Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar, one who is synonymous with Symbiosis International University. Dr. Yeravdekar has a postgraduate degree in medicine, a degree in law, and a PhD in the internationalization of higher education in India. If this wasn't enough to set the tone for our conversation today, Dr. Vidya has been and continues to serve on various government bodies and actively participates in policy making in India. Most of us are aware of her shining accomplishments and her exemplary achievements with Symbiosis, a university that started as a dream, but one that has been nurtured with hard work, vision, and a deep love for education. I want to take this chance to introduce you not only to the lady behind the imposing mahogany table, but also to the person who lives a life of a special symbiosis between work and personal space. Welcome, Dr. Vidya, and thank you for honoring this invitation and agreeing to being with me on Detangle.
Thank you, Kinjal. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ma'am, there are so many questions that people have with regards to education, especially in India, because as you know, we are on the brink of a change and we've been on the brink of a change for a very long time. So let's get started. There's so much that I want to explore with you. We know, ma'am, you've been a source of inspiration for so many people. But what I'm interested in is what inspires you. What makes you want to jump out of your bed each morning?
I think it's just the bright faces of students, both school and higher education students. It just, the need for good education, the need to do something for them, something, innovatively for them, is what makes me jump out of my bed. And every day feel that what is it new that I can bring into education.
How lovely. I've also seen this very special sparkle, ma'am, in your eyes when you talk about community service, research, even beyond education. I would love to know what about this is so interesting to you.
Yes, of course. When I speak about education, it's not just about academic delivery in classrooms, but much, much, much beyond that. And I'm one who firmly believes that there's so much learning and so much of teaching that happens beyond classrooms. We not only concentrate on good academic delivery within classrooms, but the experiential learning of students beyond classrooms is what we focus on. And I think this is the difference that Symbiosis makes to lives of so many young men and women who pass out of the portals of Symbiosis. As you very rightly said, yes, a community outreach, because I just feel that every child who comes into any form of education should also know what happens on the other side. For someone who doesn't even have a classroom education of a primary level or a secondary level or a
Mhm.
tertiary level, what happens to them? And therefore, and the other needs of society as well. So we've adopted about 35 villages around our university campus right here in Pune. And everywhere we are present, whether it's Hyderabad, Nagpur, Noida, Bangalore, we ensure that we adopt villages and communities around our university campus. And when we say we adopt, these are on two things. One is healthcare, and the other is education. So we ensure that students, especially girl students, get the right kind of education, who really deserve to be empowered through education. We ensure that literacy is brought in, and not just literacy of any kind, but digital literacy, which is so important, financial literacy, which is so important. And we engage our students in all these activities because they need to know that this is one part of society that they've never lived in, and that they can do for this part of the society or community. And therefore we have service learning as an integral component of our academic delivery. So 4 credits are earmarked for service learning. So therefore the students definitely need to immerse themselves in service learning. I always look at the CSR funding of corporates. What is it? It's about just signing a check for some kind of community work. Honestly, I don't believe in this. Of course, financial resources are required, but I think immersion of people into service learning and community work is important. So Symbiosis is actually concentrated on this. It's not just about spending financial resources on communities that we live in, but actually involving young students to experience the kind of suffering that others do, so that they know that they're far better than someone else, and they also know that they need to share what they have with the others, and it could be just sharing of knowledge as well.
I think this is so beautiful because eventually all of us learn to be sympathetic, but not many of us learn to be empathetic. And through this kind of learning, students not just learn to pity those, but they also learn to empower those and learn to walk hand in hand with everybody in the community. This is simply empowering, truly.
Absolutely.
Ma'am, there was a time in history when people would, finish their education in India, then move abroad for jobs. So we called it the great brain drain. It made it into our history books as well. But now, everywhere you look, young adults are simply choosing to study abroad, even if the same courses are available not just in their country, but in their own cities. What would you term this phenomenon? I mean, how do you feel about it?
Actually, honestly speaking, now you see a turnaround than earlier times. So even if students, Indian students, go abroad for
Mhm.
education, they want to come back and serve the country or be in the country where they were born. This is because simply India is in one of the really great hotspots. I mean, people are looking at India as one superpower. People are looking at India as an emerging superpower, I would say. And I think all the jobs are here simply because we have a large consumer base. And therefore, I think whether it's to start your own startups or whether it is to join companies, after you get yourself educated, I think it's all just here in India. And therefore, the earlier brain drain, I don't think is any longer true. Yes, of course, I am a little disheartened when you see just about 49,000 foreign students studying in India as against 10 lakh Indian students studying abroad. I think we need to change, this phenomenon. We need to bring in more and more foreign students to India, not just simply because they are students from a different country, but because they bring in diverse cultures into our region, into our classrooms. And this kind of diversity would help our own Indian students. So imagine a student from Africa, a student from Middle East, say Yemen, and a student from France sitting in the same classroom as an Indian student, learning the same subject, but bringing in diverse opinions and finding diverse solutions to probably the same problem. I believe this is the kind of learning of the 21st century. And therefore, my concerted efforts of bringing in foreign students and working at the policy level of the government of India, is something that I will continue to do. Of course, yes, there are 10 lakh Indian students going abroad, but if you look at the size of our population versus the number of students that go abroad, it's not really much. But yes, these students, definitely we see a trend in them coming back to India, and that's a great happy sign.
Now, this is extremely intriguing to me as well because not just are you talking about students going abroad or not, you're also talking about bringing foreign students in. This is an approach which is a 360 because you have thought about it not just from the exit but also from the entry point of view.
Yes, so Symbiosis has been born for foreign students. When the founder, Dr. Muzumdar, established Symbiosis in 1971, he
Mhm.
established it with the great thought of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, believing that the world is one family, bringing foreign and Indian students together to promote international understanding and brotherhood. So, this is a concept that he thought 52 years ago, which the government of India gave this mission for the G20 now. Right, the
Hmm.
G20 is going on
Yes.
right now, and is the same ideology that the G20 is propagating, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. So we're really happy that something that we brought in 52 years ago is now resonating so well with with what the Indian government wants to do. But if you really look back, with our own history of higher education, thousands of years ago, we did have universities like Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikramshila that attracted a lot of foreign scholars, foreign students to India to study. So many years ago, thousands of years ago, and then in between, as we were entangled in the colonial British Raj, and then of course we were fighting our own battle to bring in massification of education. We lost touch of bringing in these foreign students, but I think the Indian government is now reviving this and trying to bring in and trying to have a very conducive policies for foreign students to come in. I also wonder if foreign students can be really given some post study work visa after they pass out. Unfortunately, that's not the scene right now. When foreign students complete their education, they have to go back to their countries. But I've been promoting and propagating this at the highest level, stating that at least about 6 months to 1 year post study work visa, you can call it internship visa. Because see, when you look at Indian students, these 10 lakh Indian students, where do they really study abroad? They don't study in the Yales and the Stanfords and the Harvards of America. They definitely study in universities that may not be even of the quality that we have in India. but
True.
they want to go to America in search of opportunities, in search of jobs, and that's where America opens out really open out to a much larger population, to see that a more diverse population comes in for some period, because these foreign students also have heard about the top Indian companies, and therefore they want to be a part of this whole job, the employment movement in India. And I think this is what we need to do, with a selfish reason of bringing in diversity in our classrooms to increase our own potential, of our own students.
Wonderful. Ma'am, when we talk about higher education, when we talk about students choosing what to study, I see a booming industry of career counselors and centers conducting very questionable aptitude tests. Some of this is pure quackery too, but it can cause so much confusion. It can sometimes even cause emotional trauma. What's your take on this whole business that is going on the side in the name of education?
Yeah, see, so first, I think the role of parents is very, very critical. Most of the times, you see parents forcing their children to do something that they have probably wanted to do and they couldn't. So their unfulfilled desires are actually what they would force their own kids to do. So first of all, the parents should not really force upon their own children, career options. Yes, of course, there are diverse career options nowadays, and therefore there is confusion. During our times, you took science and then you did engineering or medicine. If you took arts, probably you joined the academic stream to become teachers or maybe a social scientist. And then if you took commerce, then obviously you joined the banking sector. I mean, these were very straight-jacketed approaches, which wasn't so good, because now you see an intersection of all these disciplines. There's nothing like pure sciences anymore. Sciences is for humanities and social sciences. Laboratory experiments and research is done so that it becomes translational to serve the purpose of the society and the communities that we live in. So there is a lot of intersection of disciplines also, and a lot of job options, or rather I would say career options, open for students. And therefore, first of all, parents have to be liberal with their children, because I feel the knowledge through the internet is so immense that students definitely know much, much more of career options than what their own parents would. And if their parents want to know, then they have to be really aware, and they have to be equally savvy about trying to see what are these various job options career options available for their students. Likewise, career counselors need to update themselves with the skills of knowing the latest of career options that they can provide to students. I think the best thing what students could do is to speak to alumni who have passed out of universities. So if I'm a student and I'm inclined towards, say, design, then I need to speak to people who have passed out of design schools from across the country or from across the world, and try and find out what is it that design would give me. Finally, every knowledge that you take in from any higher education institutions has to empower you with skills, so that you either get good jobs or you create good jobs, right? So therefore you have to be very vigilant of talking to peers, talking to alumni who passed out from that particular discipline. And that's where you should make career choices for yourself, so that later in life you should not repent as to why didn't I do this and why did I do this. So I think it should be a very conscious decision of every student to take the right career options. Nowadays, there's also switching over of career options. As I said, because of the intersection of disciplines, you can actually join a stream like liberal arts and then probably take in a career of your choice after you've done the 4 years liberal arts program. Now, with the whole national education policy that has come in, the new education policy that
Right.
was announced by the government of India in July of 2020, you see the implementation of this just coming in from this academic year in most states across our country. And what does it say? It talks about a liberal education. It talks about interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary education. It talks about a 4 year program, so that students are not really straitjacketed into specific streams, but they get an intersection and interdisciplinariness of all streams, so that by the end of 4 years, they can actually make out what is it that they want to do in life. And therefore, education is way beyond, just classroom teaching. It's a lot about experiential learning. It's a lot about educating your minds to think differently. It's a lot about gaining knowledge from several disciplines so that you can make the right choices. And I am so glad that the NEP has come in, and the students are really, really lucky for those who are joining in higher education institutions from this academic year.
What I hear you say right now, ma'am, is that instead of simply being reactive, students need to now be proactive. They need to take the first step, get all the information in, and then take their decisions.
Absolutely, yes.
Ma'am, you mentioned the new education policy, and one of the things that I have seen with regards this policy so far is that only a few people, like yourself or maybe others who are implementing it, are aware of what it actually means. But everywhere else, social media, WhatsApp universities have created havoc. People are scared. People have fear about what is yet to come. How do you deal with so many questions that arise out of nowhere?
So I think the answer to all this lies in actually you understanding what the new education policy is all about. And there are documents released by the Government of India on the portals of the University Grants Commission or the Ministry of Education describing what the new education policy is all about. But let me describe it in short. So the new education policy, as I said, was rolled out in July, on specifically on 29 July 2020. It
Mhm.
came out after 34 years. And let me tell you, it came out of a huge amount of consultations of almost more than 2 lakh people from across different streams.
Wow.
Students were consulted, academics were consulted. We all were part of, these consultations. There were consultations done with common people, right, going up to the rural areas of India, etc. So it's really a consultative policy. All of us in the academic circles have become, were a part of, the framing and the drafting of this new education policy through such consultations. So first of all, this new education policy belongs to all of us. This is one. The second is it has really brought in a huge change. First of all, at the school level, you see that what was 10 plus 2, which is the 10 years of school and the 2 years of 11th and 12th, or junior college as you call it, has been
Mhm.
transformed into 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. And it has been done wonderfully. It has been done scientifically through consultations with early childhood psychologists, trainers, academics, etc. So the first 5 years, what they believe is the early childhood development or the brain development happens during these first 5 years of school, which is kindergarten 1, 2, 3, and standard 1 and 2. So they've clubbed these as the foundation years. So the first 5 years are called the foundation years.
Right.
And then you have, after the standard second, you have the third, fourth, and fifth, which is the next 3 years. So the third, fourth, and fifth are called as preparatory years, so that you're actually preparing the child for middle school. So third, fourth, and fifth is the preparatory school. Then is the sixth, seventh, and eighth, which is called as the middle school, because
Mhm.
that's when you actually, are taught various subjects, various disciplines, for you all to start looking at careers, for students to start understanding what different careers are. So that's the middle school. And then the last 4 years, which is 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, are called as the high school. So now I don't think any longer, the 10th standard board exams will really have any importance, because the 10th standard is clubbed on the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th is clubbed together as high school. So foundation, preparatory, middle school, and high school. This has been the transformation. The other transformation in school education is experiential learning, also hands-on learning, also skill-based learning. So the focus is on experiential and skill learning, so that students gradually get into making choices for their own careers. Then at the higher education level, there's a huge focus on multidisciplinary education, because all of us as academics believe that there shouldn't be any specialization. If you look at any program across India or across the world, when you look at undergraduate program, it becomes so super specialized. At the undergraduate level, the child has just come out of school, and therefore what you need to give the child is holistic education. So if when you read the national education policy, the word holistic, the word multidisciplinary must have been used at least a 2 dozen times, because
Mhm.
the focus is on multidisciplinary. It is intersection of different disciplines together, and also on liberal education. What they've again focused is on, two or three different aspects. One is that the student takes some courses as core courses, so that defines where the student wants to study or which discipline the student wants to study. And then there are a lot of minors, there are a lot of electives. So this is one part. The second is the focus on value based education, the focus on Indian knowledge systems, the focus on skill based education. So see, you're giving the requisite discipline education, alongside you're giving value based education, skill based education, and also focus on Indian knowledge systems. So what they say and prescribe in the national education policy is that you need to make these students global citizens, but knowing the values, knowing the skills, and knowing what the Indian knowledge is all about. It's so beautiful. We never ever thought of all this. And I'm so happy that we are implementing all this at our university. And of course, it's been implemented at several universities across India. There have been training sessions that were held by the Government of India, by the University Grants Commission. So academics are really empowered. And I think for students who are now joining in, and it's now the 3 years of undergraduate education is converted to 4 years. And
Hmm.
plus, there is entry and exit available. So you can actually exit even in the first year with a certificate. You can exit in the second year with a diploma. You exit in the third year, you get a degree. You exit in the fourth year, so you even have a choice in the fourth year either to do an honors program or you do an honors and research program. So if I have a research bent of mine, I can focus myself on research in the fourth year. And if I focus myself on research in the fourth year, and if I pass out of a 4 year research program of undergraduate level, then I can even directly get admission to a PhD program. The
Wow.
2 year masters have been converted to 1 year masters, which has yet not been implemented because it will have a lot of repercussions. But yes, that is a thought process in the new education policy. So it's fantastic. I mean, I fortunately, being chair of FICCI Higher Education Committee, I was very, very close to the drafting of the new education policy through consultations that the committee made. Dr. Kasturi Rangan, who was the chairperson of the committee of NEP 2020, he made with us at FICCI. We've submitted a lot of documents through FICCI Higher Education. And therefore, for me personally, it's really exciting that this new education policy, which took, at least 4 years to come out. There were so many consultations held, so many times draftings, so many times committees were changed. It went through, I think, almost three education ministers, if I'm not mistaken, now has come out with a robust document of implementation. And it's really wonderful. And I think Indian education system will change. I doubt whether, the 10 lakh students who are now studying abroad because of this liberal education concept in America and other Western world will now notice it right here in India. And I don't know how many of them will want to continue there. Many of them will even come back for education in India.
This excitement, this whole positivity in your voice is just telling me that it's such a great time to be alive. It's such a great time to be a student. But despite this, ma'am, we see so many psychological challenges students are facing, the whole community is facing. We see mental health on the decline. How do you deal with this at a university level?
Oh, yes. I mean, what you said was very right. While it's exciting time in India, why are mental health issues, really so many that you see, which you never saw earlier? I think one of the reasons is also that people have started talking. It wasn't that mental health issues were not there in the past, but there was silence. It was a taboo to even speak about a mental health problem.
True.
Now, thanks to some of the celebrities who've come out and spoken about their own mental health problems, students are talking about them. The second is there is also a huge ecosystem to combat these mental health problems, like counselors being available in plenty. For example, on our university campus, we've set up something called as a Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing, a dedicated department to deal with mental health and emotional health problems. And we have dedicated staff, psychiatrists, counselors. On every Symbiosis campus, you have counselors, not just one, but at times even two when the campuses are large. So students have someone that they can go to and vent out, their feelings, their emotions. And I think that is what is very critical. When did these mental health problems arise? Honestly, they arose when families started becoming narrower and nuclear, right? I mean, in our houses, when we grew up, you always had grandmothers, you had aunts, and so many cousins and all around you that, you could actually talk about things that you couldn't talk to parents, but you could talk to your aunt, you could talk to your grandmother. You just come back home and you will have a family to receive you happily. Like today, what is the scene that you see? You have nuclear families, both parents working. Sometimes children have to come and open the lock and get into their houses, just be alone, nobody to talk to. I think that's where the mental health issues started, simply because people didn't have anybody to talk to. And I think these it's very important to have conversations. It's very important to be open to your children. It's very important to give security to your children, to so that they can come and talk about anything to them, even broken affairs, that the parents can actually listen to. So I think the whole ecosystem of the whole family system that earlier existed in our Indian culture has withered away to, becoming, obviously there are reasons, and sometimes parents can't help it because of migration, because of jobs. You want to shift from a small village to an urban town, you can't have the whole family shifting, so what do you do? So, but on the other side, there are higher education institutions offering counseling services, there are therapists, there are a lot of, these people who are, well versed with tackling with the mental health problem. So this is on one side. On the other side, I think students also need to learn to take a no. I think the whole resilience, as you call it, was something that I just simply cannot take. This is the line that students now, or young people now, talk about. So I think building that resilience amongst young people is equally important. Taking a no. I mean, how many times we offer our children, everything that they want, right? Where do parents have the ability to tell their child, no, I cannot give you this simply because of this reason? The best shortcut is to, accede to whatever your child says, because you don't have the time and you can't give that quality time, and therefore it's best to give a gift or whatever the child asks. That's the easiest way to deal and tackle with the problem. But sorry, the problem might just grow further to to mental health issues. And therefore, the to develop that resilience, I think it's not just parents, it's the whole family, it's the whole ecosystem, the higher education institutions, school education institutions. All of us have to come together to develop this resilience amongst young people, so that they will have mental issues, but not at the scale that we see today. So I think talking, having conversations, dealing it as a holistic problem, trying to find solutions, developing this resilience is important. And I'm sure, it's a passing by phase. We will develop this resilience amongst the younger generation, and we will definitely see a decline in mental health issues, definitely much better than what we see today.
Well, that's really reassuring. So, there's a question, ma'am, that I ask all my podcast guests. Like, we all have a physical first aid box in the house, a box where we keep some band aids, some painkillers, maybe some Savlon, for those days when we have minor cuts and bruises and we need to take care of it. Similarly, what if we were to have a mental first aid box? A box where we keep something which immediately makes us happy. Some people like to put photographs or a piece of chocolate, some phone numbers, for those days when there has been a little emotional setback, some trauma that you need to deal with. If you were to keep a box like this, ma'am, what would you put in it?
So I won't want to keep a physical box to deal with mental health issues. I think I would keep someone there to listen to, my child or my grandchild or someone who needs this kind of help. I know all the times it may not be possible, but certainly, someone, maybe just a maid who's so close to your child, who can be there to listen to your child. So I think not leaving your children alone, trying to fend for themselves in a house is where, this whole story of mental health issues starts. This is one. The second is also trying to build a good peer system. So having friends, having a whole peer ecosystem around you is equally important, because to open out to elderly may not be possible. It could be that you open out to friends, and therefore I think we need to make efforts to also bring in these friends home, to know who the peers of my child are, and therefore also developing a confidence level between those peers and us as parents. That's going to help. So like a physical, I'm a medical doctor myself, so if you have cuts and bruises, you can immediately apply some kind of antibiotic cream, or a bandage, and that will help you. But mental health issues are not like injuries and bruises that you can actually see with your eyes. It's something that you probably may not even know that it's happening within the minds of these young people, and you probably notice them at a stage where you cannot cure them. And therefore I think an ecosystem at home would be my first aid box, than really a critical, just a box of paper.
Lovely. I think that also resonates with your 360-degree approach, that it's not just one way, it has to go around and then it comes around. As we come to an end of the conversation, ma'am, is there a question that you would like to ask me as a psychologist?
Yes, of course. I would like to ask you as a psychologist that can you come out as a psychologist, and more so you're a health psychologist. So can you come out with some kind of toolkit that could
Mhm.
be applicable to young students who are pursuing their higher education. So you identify students who are just on the brim of getting into mental health issues. If there is a toolkit, maybe there's already one which I'm not aware of, but if there is some toolkit that universities and higher education institutions can use, because I feel as a doctor that early detection of any illness, whether it's physical or mental, is very, very critical. You identify something at a later stage, then you cannot really give that kind of treatment that will really help cure the patient or cure the student. So I think early identification is very critical. So if as a psychologist you all can develop some toolkit and an Indianized way of a toolkit, because I think mental health issues are also cultural issues.
Absolutely.
So what mental health issues are in America or in the Western world may not be the same, because ecosystems are different, the cultures are different, the way the children are brought up are different. Whereas nuclear families is the norm in the West, in our in our ecosystem, the family holds the utmost importance. So I think some kind of toolkit that psychologists can come up with for early detection would be really helpful to all of us in the academic environment.
Absolutely, ma'am, because we've already started using some screening methods in clinics. For example, now, as a doctor yourself, you're aware of the amount of patients that any doctor sees on a daily basis. So, a lot of neurologists, a lot of cardiologists have now started using simple screening tools like the PHQ or the GAD questionnaires, which take about 5 minutes to solve. And it gives a basic idea of, how far gone the patient is in terms of mental health and how we can start helping immediately. So, if we can come up with something like this at a student level, I'm sure it's not difficult and I'm sure it can be implemented. So, that's a brilliant thought. That is something I'm going to take forward from this podcast and start working on.
Please do. We'll be happy to collaborate with you through the Symbiosis Center for Emotional Wellbeing.
Oh, fantastic. I think this is what makes the true difference when everybody comes together, when the energies collide, and when true symbiosis happens. That's when we actually can make change. So, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Well, ma'am, this has been the most tremendous conversation for me. Although I didn't have an idea how far we could go with mental health and education in simply 30 minutes, I think you have given us insight into the new education policy, into this beautiful concept of service learning, and into how you bring everything to 360 degrees and not just in a linear process. So, thank you for spending your time. Thank you for giving us your experience and your insight, and for sharing all that we can do as a community. Because alone, we cannot manage even one tenth of what we can do in a group. So, thank you for all this, and thank you for your wonderful, wonderful experiential learning.
Thank you, Kinjal, for having me on your podcast. And I greatly follow all your podcasts, and you're doing amazing work to connect all of us with the communities.
Thank you so much, ma'am.